just gonna start with, I wanna start with the beginner's mind. What you mentioned before off mic, this idea of how you start a painting, both in your headspace, but the physical component of it too, like the tangible, the substrate, whether it's wood or whether it's canvas, the decisions that are made, because there are a lot of them that you know, is this going to be a larger piece? Is this going to be smaller? I know squares are your thing, but you know, sometimes you go for these rectangles. Tell me about beginner's mind and tell me what it's like for you to start a painting. And if it helps, we can point to one of the paintings that we're surrounded by that we can walk it through.
Yeah, so beginner's mind is kind of a tried and true Zen approach or way of dealing with your life, your everyday life. And in terms of painting, it's a matter of trying not to predetermine what's going to be on the canvas.
No picture in your mind, no drawing. Okay.
No. And so, you know, it was harder years ago when I was less confident about what it was that I wanted to what kind of image that I was comfortable with, and the kind of vocabulary that I eventually developed.
Okay.
But I'm pretty confident that when I start a painting, I'll put something down that will start the shape, the form that I really want to go with.
Got it.
So I don't do drawings, but I draw on the canvas. Usually when they're smaller, I'll work on wood.
Okay.
And then when they get a little bigger, I go back and forth between canvas that's mounted on gator board, which gives it a very firm surface because I don't like any give.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable just working on straight canvas because for years I worked just with wood, and I do love that really hard surface.
But it's heavy.
Yeah,
when you
that's
get
why.
those bigger sizes.
When I started getting big, and because I turned the canvas around often to see it, you know, in different positions, and that got really heavy, and so then I went to canvas.
And that's another reason I'm assuming that you don't work maybe canvas stapled to a wall. You do like that sort of the turn and the manipulating it as you work.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
I tried once on the wall. Actually, this one here was done on the wall.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a little bit different than the others, but I wasn't comfortable with it. Not that I would never go back to it, but I've gotten so accustomed to, you know, having a framed piece. I do work on the wall. I work on the wall though. I don't work on an easel.
Right. Understood.
I used to work on an easel, and then somehow, you know, when they did these studies about you shouldn't sit all day, you know, I thought to myself, oh my God, I have to move a little more. So I decided to stand and paint, and so I've gotten into that. I like that.
Okay.
So beginner's mind, it's just really just trusting that something will develop as I continue, whether I put a color down or I put the beginning of a shape. And then it's really kind of a call and response. It's kind of a relationship between the line, between the form, between the color, and then the choice of another color. So it all kind of builds on each other, and it starts to become something that I want to see on the panel, on the canvas.
Tell me what the drawing is that starts the painting. Are we talking, do you use something like graphite or probably not charcoal, or are you drawing, when you say that word, is it with a brush and it's line, you're working with line? It's
basically with a brush.
Okay.
You know, sometimes I'll put an undercoat of a color just to get rid of the white of the canvas.
We're going to come back to white because I've been stalking your paintings online, and you you use white. I think you used to use it more from what I could see, but white is a terrifying color for me when it's still, first at the beginning, of course, like what you're saying, but as a final choice, white has, I actually made 2 white paintings 10 plus years ago, and I still think about them as being somewhat like,
not finished or something?
yeah, or like such a unfinished and yet finished, but it's like white tricks you sometimes with that. Anyway, we'll get to it later. So you sometimes put down a blanket color to get rid of the white, and then
I'll either pick up a paintbrush with some, you know, it's basically random. It could be a brown, you know, a Prussian blue. It could be any color that's on my palette.
Okay.
And just start forming a very simple shape. It could be, you know, circular. It could be something large, something small, and then, or else I'll put just some color, a large swath of color, and then respond to that. So it's, again, it's very at the moment. I mean, it's improvised. It really is, and sometimes that's scary because often when I put down the first or second thing I put down will somehow dictate where it's going. And sometimes like, oh, wait a minute, do you want to be sure about what you're putting down at first? And I'm like, no, let's just see what happens.
Got it.
I'm trying to get into that, let's see what happens. But at the same time, the work is very intentional. It's not like, oh, whatever goes, goes.
Right.
It's very intentional, and it's as the painting evolves, I am refining and changing, and the shape is very, very crucial as to where it sits on the canvas and what it's doing, and there's a lot of change. Yeah.
I've got so many questions based on just that. Let me, we're gonna take a quick pause and I'll ask you, come a little forward. I'll give you more space. Yeah, just with the echo and the noise out there. This is perfect. Okay. And that's perfect and that's perfect. Okay. So, where I wanna go now is, okay, so what you were saying is that these works are not spontaneous in the way that things will just happen. Like, you're more of a deliberate, maybe paint and then sit back and think about the work? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Okay. No, there's a lot of sitting and looking, and sometimes, you know, even though my work has a kind of elemental quality to a lot of them, there's a lot of sitting and then adjusting a corner, or, you know, I don't like what's happening on this side of the shape, but that sometimes takes, you know, weeks sometimes before some of them I'm like, I have no idea, but it's not working, you know, that kind of thing.
Right. Well, how permanent is the first shape, the first mark, the first element on the canvas? Because how you described it, to me, that would be a sort of terrifying beginning, to not have the image in your head of where you're going, which I can relate to, but I like to have something to start with, that drawing that I can be confident in the moment, but also I let it go as I need to.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way about that, or is there a sort of codified nature to that first move that you have to be in conversation with from there on?
So I used to wish, years ago, I used to wish that I had a drawing to work from.
Okay.
Because I always thought, oh my God, that would be so much better, you know, but I finally acknowledged and accepted that this is how I work.
Got it.
And yes, putting down the initial part of a shape or suggestion of a shape or color, no, it's all kind of up for grabs for quite a while.
Okay.
There might be a little part of it that I'm like, I'm going to keep, but the first go around or two, it's kind of shape shifting, you know,
Okay.
I am changing. And then suddenly there's something that's there and I think this could be a painting. And then I start really kind of delving deeper into, you know, how to make that come together.
Okay.
And it really is the color and the edge, the line that really starts making it work. You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good edge that always
Yes, I'm
it's
very
a shocking moment, and then you're like, and it's so sad if you have to get rid of it later on. I love a good edge.
There's those, not even the edge, there's always this little something that comes up in the painting, a little flourish, a little something, and it happens all the time, and it's like, you know that it can't stay,
Yeah.
but you get so easily attached because like, oh, that's such a nice little section there, you know, can I, and it stays, and then sometimes it's like, okay, just get rid of it. And then as soon as I get rid of it, kind of opens up, it starts to work. It's just, but it happens all the time. I mean,
Exactly, almost every time.
you know, but I've also come to realize that over the years, it's part of this developing trust that you can make something work, because I would inevitably hit kind of like a third of the way in, you know, it's not working, I can't make this shape work, I don't know what to do with it, get very discouraged, feel like I just don't know if this is going to work, this painting is going to work at all. And then I would notice again and again that I would suddenly get through that little period, and then I'd be out on the other side, and the painting would start to work again. And I finally recognized that. So now, whenever I get to that point, I'm always like, okay, it's not working now. It's going to work. Just, you know, don't worry. And it's really, really helpful.
I can imagine.
It's so helpful. It's like, instead of turning the painting around saying, forget about this painting, it's like, all right, let's give it some more time.
On that note, no, I'm going to stick with this sort of beginning stage, otherwise I'm going to go all over the place. When you're making those first marks, are you being, and I'm sure you are, conscious of the physical makeup of the paint? Like, are you painting so thin to allow yourself the drying time that you could basically start working immediately? Are you a painter that lets, after certain moves in the studio, you let the painting dry fully or partially before going in again? Because there is a lot of layering to this work, there's a lot of transparency, there's, you know what you're doing with paint, and I just wonder, I used to start paintings with acrylic, not because I liked anything about acrylic, I'm not good using that medium, but it allowed me to create a form that I could respond to instead of making it and kind of letting it dry, because I hate a painting that gets muddy too quick. So just tell me what the properties of the paint are that you begin with.
Yeah, I'm not good at letting paint dry.
Okay.
So I don't use any, in terms of even the materials in the medium that I start with and use, I don't use turpentine.
You don't use turps.
And I use linseed oil and oil paint.
Okay.
And that's it. And thin, thick, I sometimes get into trouble because I do get impatient. That's part of the reason I work on more than 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah.
Usually I'll have 2 to 4 paintings on the wall at any time in various stages of completion.
Yeah.
Some are there because I don't know how to finish it. It just has to stay there until, I look over it and think, oh, I know exactly what I need to do.
Okay.
I have gotten in trouble a couple of times where I've worked on a painting that probably wasn't dry enough, and a month goes by and all of a sudden there's a few cracks in the paint, and I've had to sand it down.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh,
bummer.
But and so in terms of, I layer a lot. I layer a lot partly because I'm making a painting and then changing it. and making another painting.
Oh, that's
you
such a
know,
good
and
point.
so there's
Yeah.
so many paintings underneath the final painting
Mhm.
because I don't, because I don't have something predetermined or drawing to work from, that I'm figuring it out as I go along, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I know some people like a very smooth surface and don't like to have that kind of pentimento or whatever. I know there's another word with a P, I forget now, that shows through. But I find the history of a painting is the history of the painting that the person has struggled to make, and what's underneath it is very interesting. So, you don't want to overdo it, but I will sand and I will scrape, but often I will leave certain parts of it. But it is a buildup of paintings rather than, and within that, surfaces and thicknesses and texture.
That's a terrific insight. Do you ever stop with the first painting, like, or even the second or third painting? And if so, does it feel weird? I mean,
That's a good question.
because sometimes paintings do happen easy.
Absolutely.
Not very often in my experience, but I have had a couple that they fall into place, and the other one is a travesty and nothing but obstacles, but something just
Kind of
happens.
I find actually that does happen sometimes, and I find that it usually happens, I've noticed, after I've done 2 or 3 unsuccessful paintings, and they're sitting there and I don't know what to do with them, and then I start another one, and it happens so fast.
Interesting.
And I've always attributed it to the fact that I couldn't that was practice, those other 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden it's working.
Amazing.
On this new one. And sometimes I take, like everybody, I take photos of my paintings in progress,
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm on the subway, I'll take a look at what I did before, and there are many times when I'll think, why didn't you just leave it? It looked so good at this first iteration of the painting. But so that happens every so often.
Every so often.
But yeah.
Do you ever play with those in-process photographs digitally? Do you ever explore color that way, or adding on a shape? It feels like it might be counterintuitive to your practice, but a lot of people have an iPad and a pen to play with things. Is that your style at all?
It's not really. I've tried. I have Procreate, which people use, and I have an iPad. I used to try, and I thought, all right, I'm going to do some digital drawings,
Sure.
and I don't know, it just didn't feel fluid enough for me. I mean, it's fun. It's definitely fun, but I never got into the habit of doing it, so I put it aside. But a lot of people I know use it, and it's a very valuable tool to edit and to try different things,
Tell me about unsuccessful paintings or paintings as practice. Do you ever allow a painting to just be unsuccessful? Do you have a pile of dead paintings in your studio somewhere, or do you fight your way through with every work that you start?
Well, I haven't really thrown out anything recently, but I have a bunch of paintings that, even from the past 2 years, that I turn to the wall, and kind of forget about.
Yep.
And then every so often I'll say, oh, what's behind there? And I'll look at it and I'll think, oh, you know what? Maybe I should, because I do like working on old paintings. I love that. I love start painting on something that's already been painted.
Interesting, okay.
And then of course, if I look at all the paintings I have, paintings from, 7, 8 years ago, I think, oh God, maybe I should just paint over this completely. I try not to do that and try just to, leave it alone because I liked it at the time. But no, I do have a bunch of paintings that I will probably at some point just try to make work.
Okay.
Not tons, but a few.
Do you ever feel as the painting progresses that you tighten, like as you go? Sometimes in my own work, I get my hackles up when it feels like I'm polishing a painting in the last. Though we're going to talk about finishing, probably this is the segue to it. But if your thing is call and response and intuitive and each day kind of creates a new painting, maybe that's why you don't feel this way, because it's like, no, I'm not polishing or touching up things. It's new each day that I build it.
No,
Where do you land on this?
No, but actually I do get into that phase of kind of, so when the shape works, when it's finally like, this is where it needs to be, I can't do anything else, I then kind of go in, like, the detail.
Right.
And I clean things up. And I actually love that process.
You like that part.
I love that process.
Because it can be cathartic too. The finishing can be for some artists.
Yeah, and you know, because I'm not as, you know, I feel like I'm precise at the end, and then sometimes after the fact, I'm like, oh, you know, that I should have just corrected that a little bit more. But yeah, I like using little brushes and finishing things up, or kind of
the fiddly bits.
Fiddling, yes. So I enjoy both sides of it.
Okay. Does that mean then that the more precise parts of the finished paintings are often some of the final parts? Like if we were to talk about that piece back there with the red spiral on it, obviously it's sitting on top, so it can't be that old, but are often your last moves more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not just detail, but these sort of precision.
Final kind of.
Or is that something that came up earlier and then you built in maybe a heavy shape around it? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, no, in that particular one, no, I didn't, you know, that came after the bigger shape.
Got it, sure.
But during the, you know, the making of the painting, it wasn't a finishing thing.
Got it.
You know, but
that's the question.
I think the finishing for me is kind of like, sometimes I'll paint over an area that looks like it needs a little cleaner edge or side, but most of the parts that are within the shape that I, you know, that kind of comes around as I'm in the middle of the painting. You know.
Got it.
Or sometimes earlier, and then I might change the outside shape because of what's going on in the interior of it or something. So
sure,
it's kind of a,
so still in that call and response.
Still in that, call and response thing. Yeah, it's a relationship thing. You know.
Got it.
Oh, this color's not working. You know, it's like.
Right. So now we'll get to the point in the show where just Isaac asks for painting advice. So I was thinking about this just recently, where you know how every artist has their solutions, you know, like we've used them many times before, because when you're in a pinch, like they're always like good pocket solves for something, even if, you know, shyly admitting you have used that one before. You know, someone could point out and be like, I've seen that shape a couple of times. And you're like, yeah, it's a great shape. Lately, I've been feeling that way about flatness, the opacity, those moments when it's just, there's nothing messy about it. There's just, I did this recently to hair, this section of hair in a painting, where, you know, it was all over the place. It was loosey-goosey, who knows? And then I thought, you know, this painting could get finished if I just made this a flat shape. Just let it be there. And that made me think about how finishing for me, I often use flatness as kind of I think it's hard for me to see one of my own paintings without an element of flatness in it as finished. So it's a little strange sounding, I know, but you use so many physical touches with your painting, and yet I think you also use a flatness as a move. And granted, if you look at your flatness, you do see everything behind it. So you're not, usually when I'm doing flatness, it is flat. Very flat and clean. You know, and clean. And what I'm talking about is not so much tightening, but that's like, that really gives a balance to the piece. And I wonder if you would say that you have many works that don't have more opaque elements, and if there's any discomfort with that. And
well, it's an interesting question because I'm trying to, in these past 2 years with some of this work, trying to not just use flat shapes and to try to kind of activate the inside of a shape.
Interesting.
Which is very uncomfortable for me.
Got it.
Because I'm generally a very subtractive painter, and whenever something appears that looks like a flourish or something kind of unnecessary, my instinct was always get rid of it.
Even if you like it, like you were saying before. Yeah.
But now I'm trying to let something that I would normally take away stay.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And it's, because I've said before that, I was always very attracted when I was growing up to minimalist painting from the 70s.
Okay.
But what I didn't like about it was that it was kind of so boring and very male and very, there was no kind of emotion or kind of, it felt a little dead to me, even though I loved the forms and the geometry of it and everything, so I was attracted to it. And I always wanted to do work that had a little bit of that in terms of shape, in terms of flatness, but I wanted there to be a little bit more activity or energy behind it.
Sure.
And I feel like some of these newer pieces, I'm trying to kind of energize the shape a little bit more and be comfortable with, and not feel like, oh, it's just an extra or a flourish, it's just too gimmicky, take it away, And that's always, I'm trying to balance it with the shape, or and just kind of to know when it's okay and when it's too much.
Yeah, it's a really, I'm glad I asked about it, because I think it's so sort of foundational to a certain type of painting, that these moments are, you don't know when they could be tacky, or when they could be, a big one for me is like, is this a good part of the painting, or is this like a cool part of a painting?
Exactly.
Are you just trying to be like some cool guy over here? Like, no, get rid of it.
Yes.
And yet there's also a vulnerability to it.
Yes.
So this hair that I have not yet painted over, I think 9 out of 10 people would probably say this is poorly painted. And yet there might still be something there.
Right.
So it's
hard. It's constantly questioning, why is that there? Is it there because you think it's kind of, is it working in the context of the painting, or is it like a flourish or a gimmick or something that you just think, is cool, or it's just like, and really doesn't need to be there, and it's just like you really, it's kind of trusting at some point that it needs to be there because it feels kind of connected and in relation to the rest of the painting in some way, and not just kind of coming from your head like, oh, that looks kind of cool, I'm gonna, although sometimes that could work also, but when you have to just be able to, distinguish, it's hard.
It's interesting. You just hinted at it too, but I don't think every part of a painting needs to be a functional part of a painting, right?
Like, I agree.
There's that whole screenwriting thing where, I don't know who laid this out, but like every scene in a well-constructed movie needs to lead to the next scene. It needs to give you a little bit of character development, or it has to give you a little bit of arc, or this, or mood. Meaning that if you took anything out, you would be... But painting doesn't work like that, right?
No, I agree.
Even with call and response, even when everything is built on the last thing, it's like sometimes the ephemera is good.
Yes.
And like you want stuff that is besides the point, or maybe you could pluck it out, but you decided to put it in.
Right. No, I agree. It's definitely not functional. It's functional sometimes, but
Yeah.
It's again that question of, I don't know, proportionality, or does it really, I think in the end, if you're, honestly looking at it and you're satisfied with it and it works, it's too ambiguous to really make a real answer to that question, because
For sure.
and also ambiguity is, I think, in a painting is really wonderful. I love ambiguity. I don't like to know everything that's going on in the painting and why.
Absolutely right. What about where was I going with? Oh, there was a question I had from before. What happens when you work your way through a painting to an accidental, recognizable object or shape? Do you become self-conscious about it in those moments and say, oh, well, that one looks too much like a piece of toast. We're gonna have to offset that. And then maybe, are there other times where you say, as an abstract painter, I'm keeping it looking like a piece of toast. Is that something that, how do you work around that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I go through that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it makes sense. Of
Yeah.
course, these have a very objectness form to them, with flatness and so it makes sense.
And head-like and stuff. Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yes, I am constantly, all of a sudden something looks like an eye, and I'm like, uh-oh.
So it is uh-oh.
It's an uh-oh. What do you want to do about that? And I'm trying to leave it alone more often than not again, so if that's what is working there, and am I going to be so uncomfortable that someone's going to say, or people, it's like the red one over there.
Yeah.
People look at that one, is that a duck beak? And I'm like, well, it could be, and I might have changed that at some point. It's not when I made it, it's not, but I like suggestive, and I'm trying to be more comfortable that if it really looks like, whatever, a mouth or something, that's okay, as long as it's not so fixed as that, that you could go either way, or there's more than one interpretation. But yeah, no, it's certainly comes up.
For sure. What about, how do you think your paintings have changed? You can answer this two ways. We did talk about that there's a type of painting that you're doing now with the beginner's mind that doesn't seem like it goes back decades for you. It seems more perhaps last couple of years, meaning once you really kind of gave it a name and kind of designated it. So last couple of years. Okay. So how would you say your paintings, what's changing in them from even the work from 2020 on, that you are conscious of? Maybe it's something that you're getting away from. Maybe it's colors you're trying to explore now. When I was looking at some older work you had on the website, I definitely noticed a shift in color, and I definitely noticed what I saw was a lot more of this white as a active element. You still paint with it, I know, but so I see color differences, and you've already pointed out, of course, that you are exploring what happens inside a form now, but I'm wondering if there's maybe anything else over the years that has been we all set ourselves challenges to how's this body of work gonna push me or change? Anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think my work evolves maybe slower than a lot of people's work, because it's I think when I look back years ago, there was still these forms, sometimes they're more than one, you know, I had it on a canvas that were kind of interacting or kind of merging or
okay.
not, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Color-wise, you know, it's just, it's very, I don't know, my going to Mexico now each year might have had an influence the past few years.
You
the
see
color,
different colors.
yeah, Mexico is just full of, you know, incredible color. I think though the biggest change is just me, is my comfort with myself as a painter, my trusting my ability, developing a confidence that I didn't have 10 and 20 years ago. So, you know, always doubting, but like I said before, always knowing that I would come to something that you know, now is mine, you know, and so yeah, so for me it's not so much, oh, I think I want to do a body of work that, like, you know, where I'm only going to make a shape that is this, that's, you know, with sharp edges or with round edges. You know, I don't do that. I really let the work dictate, you know, to a certain extent, and then I take full control. But I've just noticed that I'm much more comfortable painting because I kind of trust that I can make a painting that satisfies me.
Absolutely.
You know?
Do you, quick question is just, do you think about a body of work ever? Like when you're working towards, you know, another show here, do you think about that? Do you think about how they work together, or is it just, again,
one after another? No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you
exactly.
know, I don't work in series. I never have. I think it's great when people do.
Sure.
I think mostly in terms of like 2 years, you know, of work or something.
Yeah.
But they all, you know, when they're on the wall in my studio, you know, there is, like people talk about, this conversation that happens
Between the works. Yep.
And, you know, me and the works and the work and the work, because there is definitely something that joins them together, but I don't think, oh, now I may have to make a new body of work that's, yeah, that's just not the way I think of them.
It makes sense, because you're not visualizing the individual pieces you start.
Right.
So I don't know how it would be a conflict in terms.
It would, yeah. But you know, I could put another show together with, you know, mix them up again. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you feel? I know you work on a couple at a time, and I know that you turn non-functioning paintings around. But do you, in your studio, have a fair amount of finished pieces that are on walls kind of around you to inspire, or you just like looking at them, or are you only looking at 2 or 3 paintings at any given time?
Well, I only have like 2 walls that I work on.
There you go. So it's like, maybe in an ideal world,
exactly.
I'd be curious too.
Yeah, maybe I would put a couple that I liked to, I had a painting a few years ago that was small, that I really loved, that I was still kind of getting something out of, and by accident, it was at the gallery, and I kind of, my intention was, you know, that's for me, you know, and, but they ended up selling it to somebody, and I was like, oh my God, can you get that back? I literally wanted it back.
For sure.
And then I was like, I can't do that, so it was fine, but,
it's a little heartbreaking,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Generally, I only have work up that I'm working on.
Yeah.
And so right now I have 3 or 4 that I'm in the middle of, that, you know, and that I find that whatever I'm working on is kind of intriguing enough. I don't need to, you know, I get inspired by those, you know.
Got it. If you can answer this, lovely. If you can't, makes perfect sense. Any idea where that confidence came from, or how long in you were before you started feeling a I know you still feel doubt in the studio, but you've mentioned it a couple of times now that there is an ease with which you think of yourself as a painter and in the way that you make these. So
When did that come?
yeah, because obviously you weren't always
Right,
like that,
no.
right? There was much more hand-wringing, sounds
Yeah.
like.
I mean, not to say that each painting is like, oh my God,
No.
but I think it's partly age.
Mm.
It's like I said, I have a Buddhist practice which has helped me a lot over the years, being in therapy. It's just kind of a comfort and an acceptance of, and maybe it's over the past 15 years, maybe 10, 15 years, where it's just kind of like, instead of wanting to paint a different way or wishing this or wishing that, it's like, this is what I do.
Mm.
Do it as best as you can and just try to enjoy it. And that was like, and yeah, it's a lot of it's age, just kind of being comfortable with, it's so basic, but just be comfortable with this is, these paintings are an extension of me, right? And if you can't kind of acknowledge that and know that they're not this and they're not that and they're not figurative or they're not conceptual and they're not that, and then you just drop it all and you're just like, well, this is what I do. It's a small audience, a big audience, or whatever audience, this is the best I can do. And that was something, whenever I don't know, it was very freeing.
Well, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise you go through, you're gonna go through the rest of your life, just, and also being able to show and getting your work out there is a tremendous, on whatever level it is, it's a tremendous acknowledgement that what you're doing is fine, it's good.
Mm.
And having a community of artists that are very supportive, it's all part of it. You can't really take that away. You don't want to be working in a vacuum and your studio by yourself. Some people might like that. I love working in my studio alone, but
of course,
it's also,
yeah, it has all these different
yes,
components
it
to
does. It really does.
Huh. What about, I know where I want to go, and we're going to talk about your studio day and rituals and that, but I am curious about when you said 15 years ago and you mentioned you have a son, you have a family, nothing changed around that time. Obviously a lot of things changed around that time, but stereotypically I sort of think, I imagine that life changes, life events are the thing that could knock you out of this, oh, art is so, what is this? It's so complicated. What am I? The la la la. Like, I sort of think that when things around you change, maybe you move to a new place, or you buy a house, or you leave a place where you've been a long time, you get married, you start a family, like none of those things were the instigator that we're talking about, at least not by themselves, right? You didn't think, okay, well, I have a son now. There's now at least one person more important than my painting practice, and therefore painting just, like a little switch just becomes easier. It doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you're right. all those changes,
they add up.
Yeah, and I always think of, I have my art, people don't, I've said this before, artists don't like the word practice because they think it's like you're still, rehearsing for that. But I always think of I have an art practice, I have a family practice, and I have a Zen practice. And those three practices evolve and change over time. Yes, when I had my son, that threw me for a huge loop. I actually, I started as, I don't know if you know this, but I did start out as a photographer.
Yeah.
And it was when my son, we were living in Washington, D.C., and we had this huge snowstorm. And I mean, it was like 2 feet of snow, and we couldn't leave. And even actually beside the snowstorm, I was stuck in the house, you know, and he was just a few months old. And I decided very consciously that I didn't want to photograph anymore, that I wanted to paint.
Oh, really?
And it was about when he was a year old that I made the change.
Wow.
I think I'd always wanted to be a painter. I grew up loving art, loving painting, but you know, again, that comment is I didn't have the confidence to pick up that at an early age. So I picked up a camera, and I did that for years, and I got a degree and everything. But yeah, so it was the change of being a mother, having a baby, being in the house, because I was a photographer that would go out and photograph.
I see.
I used to photograph in construction sites a lot, objects. You
Okay.
know? And yeah, and then I just started painting and kind of never looked back. But I think absolutely getting, you know, I mean, I got married a little later, and then I left New York City for a while. So I think all those changes can only impact, you know, and it, you know, there's balance, it shifts all the time, right? I mean, right now you take care of your child and less painting, but
Yeah.
somehow you make room. But it's a discipline, right? Like anything else. I mean, you have to be committed to it. I remember when I was in graduate school, and I remember one of my teachers always said, you have to get into your studio every day. And I'd be like, really? Every day? And you just have to keep working, even when you don't know what, you know. And I think it's really true in some form. I mean, you can't always be in your studio physically, because I'm not. I try to be. But even mentally, to be with the work or to be thinking about it, even when you're seeing other work, or, yeah, it's a you know, it's that practice, that's continuous practice, that I think gets you somewhere ultimately. You know.
Did you plan on just like giving up photography and moving to painting, or do you still do any photography? So was that really in mind, what you had in mind, or was it like, okay, well, I've got a newborn, I can't go to construction sites, I'll paint for a while and then get back to photography?
No, I was
really
getting tired of photography.
Interesting.
It
So
happened around the time when digital photography started coming out on the computer. Photoshop came out, and I got really into it for a while. I used to love playing with Photoshop and my photographs, but then I kind of got tired of it. And yeah, so it was this, you know what, I want to paint.
Yeah.
I want to try. And as soon as I put it down, I never looked back. Yeah.
Well, that does sound like, I know the context of what we're talking about, but that does subscribe a little bit to the theory of like
big
shift, and then the confidence to kind of to life event confidence to have the big shift.
Yeah. I mean, and I had never really taken painting classes, and it was just, it was.
Do you consider yourself self-taught when it comes to painting then?
You know, so I actually went to the Art Institute of San Francisco and got an MFA in photography.
In photography?
Yeah. And then when I moved back to the New York area, we moved to Montclair, where my son grew up for 15 years. And I was painting by myself in my attic. I had no idea what I was doing. And I found out that down the street was Montclair State University, which, you know, was just like this state university. And I thought, well, maybe I should take a class or something and meet somebody else, because I didn't know artists in New York at the time. And I ended up taking a class. I took a class with an artist who's quite well known, Julie Heffernan, and they were starting an MFA program there. And said, oh, you know, you should. And I was like, I don't want to go back to school again. But I ended up doing it for a couple of years because they gave you a studio that was pretty great.
Oh, all right.
And a lot of New York artists would come through.
Cool.
And it was really worth, I mean, I would never have gone back to school again, but because I was like 10 blocks down the road, I did it.
Sure.
And it was very worthwhile.
But you were were taking classes there,
So,
and
well,
you were
no, I
you were
took,
just using the studio.
it was studio and critique.
Yeah, of course.
So
The
I never
critiques.
really, I think I took 2 classes in color theory and something else, but I really never learned, really painting techniques, etc.
Okay.
And, I remember leaving and thinking, how am I going to critique my own work? That was like a big thing. But anyway, so that was kind of where that, there was that shift a little bit there.
Do you feel these days a virtuosity, a dexterity with the material that, that you, maybe you don't know everything about oil painting, but you absolutely have come to a point where you understand it, or do you feel a little bit like foreigner, still the photographer turned painter, not in the sense of having, what is it called, imposter syndrome. I don't mean that. I just mean, do you still feel like you fight with the material at all, or is it how technically proficient do you feel?
Well, I make it work for me, obviously, but I do know that there are a lot of painters out there who will put on their palette, all the colors,
Oh, sure.
and I don't do that.
I don't do that either. No shame, of course.
Right. But I admire that they know,
Uh-huh.
let's put all the warm together, all the cool. But yeah, I think through experience, I feel, I guess, pretty comfortable with paint and how I use it. But, it would have been nice, I guess, to have had more technical know-how. But maybe there's a little freedom in not knowing so much. I don't know.
I think so. What about, let's talk about your average studio day. So if you don't have errands to run or other responsibilities, and it's just a free day for you, when ideally do you start? When do you finish? How active are you? What do you listen to? Is there a meditation moment or a couple in the studio day? Just walk us through.
Yeah, it's pretty, I guess, simple in a way. I usually get into the studio, let's say 9:30. I have a studio outside of, I live in an apartment, so it's around 10, 12-minute drive to my studio. It's a nice little studio, and usually I come in and, say hi to what's on the wall, look forward to kind of getting into it. I have put on my headphones and make sure my palette is clean, which sometimes it's not, because
Mine is currently not.
Yes, I get lazy, and so I have to clean it. But and I usually start with the daily.
The daily?
The podcast.
Oh, the daily. Sure.
I'm a little addicted to
Another
that.
podcast?
Another
besides
podcast.
This one? Wow.
I do listen. I
Free
do listen to you.
advertising.
And I just look at the 3 or 4 that I have on the wall, and I feel like, well, I'm going to start with this one and put some paint down and just try to get right into it. I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Less music than I used to, which I really get annoyed that I listen to less, so I try to put more in, like in the afternoon. I listen to art podcasts, I listen to, more the usual, Ezra Klein, blah, blah, blah. But I find that the some people can't, but I find that it interests the part of the brain, the cognitive part of the brain, so then I can just work. So that part's listening, and then this kind of other part of me will just paint. I don't usually talk. Occasionally I'll talk to somebody. I don't visit anybody really, except my neighbor occasionally in the building. It's a building filled with artists and small companies, cabinet makers.
Okay.
take a lunch break in my studio, and then just usually I work. I don't work for hours. You know, I'll work till maybe 4 o'clock, and then you know, come home and be with my partner, and you know, so it's I can get a lot done.
Okay.
You know.
So you're not one of those kind of sit around artists that need a lot of time to, just in the fact that you start quick leads me to believe that, you know, some people need more of an entry time into it, you know.
Well, I shouldn't say, yeah, I mean, I do sit down and maybe for 15, you know, I'll look and I'll think, well, what do you want to, you know, what do you think, or what do you think needs to change, or, you know, and then I will get up, and so it is, I'm standing, working, then I'm sitting, and I'm staying, you know, so that's a
but
constant.
you're in it.
Right, I'm in it, yeah.
What about procrastination? Have there been periods in your life where you go in and maybe, I guess that you can't paint, or that you don't want to go to the studio, or, you know, anything like that?
Yeah.
When's the last time something like that came about?
Well, I think it's hard when you have a show.
Well, of course.
To get back in the studio. So
and you do like to keep one of those, like,
exactly
around. I mean, for obvious reasons, but also for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting back in the studio this month, you know, I've been really, you know, making a point of, okay, let's get back, and you do have something to work on. Let's just try to work and not think about the show, blah, 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 you know, who.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't have big periods of, you know, oh, I can't work, or, you know, when I can go into the studio and I try to get in regularly, I try to work on something. And if it's very little, and if I take it off by the end of the day, I mean, sometimes I'll just remove it. That's okay. Like I said, I think it's important to either be there and just stare at it, and just, you know, but yeah, I don't have long periods of not working.
I see.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that occasionally you don't do drawings, but you occasionally do little oil paintings on paper. Is that an odd occurrence in the studio? Could that be seen as warm-ups for a painting, or is it just like you in a different mood, you'll make some works on paper?
Yeah, I don't do them as much as I would like to, actually.
Oh, yeah?
I went through a phase where I did some, usually oil, I was doing oil on vellum, and then oil on Arches paper. They're small. So, yeah, I want to start doing a little more of them. And they're very kind of adjacent to the paintings, but they're, you know, in the same, well, they're different. They're maybe it's harder for me because I don't do them as much, and when I come into the studio, I'm very drawn towards just starting to work on what's on the wall. So I think maybe in Mexico, maybe I'll try to do some more.
What do you like about them? What do they offer that a painting on canvas doesn't? Is it scale? Is it the feeling of the surface? Speed, maybe?
Yeah, it's the scale, because I do work very small. I mean, smaller than
even these guys in the
little
back
one,
room?
yeah, in the back room.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit smaller. There's not as many iterations, maybe, because I could, I guess, but maybe it's more, I don't know, that's a good question. It is different, it feels different. Maybe it's more immediate, you know, like doing a drawing, it's more immediate. I don't work it over and work it over.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't, I mean, I know it's oil paint, but it's almost like a watercolor where you kind of have to figure it out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so it's, and they're very intimate, and they're kind of fun when I get into it.
Sure.
So, you know, yeah.
Well, we're getting close to wrapping up here. I would like to put you on the spot, if you don't mind, and ask if you have any, you've already given some good advice, but a lot of the people that listen to this show are younger artists, maybe still in school or getting out of school, starting their careers as artists, and just wondering if you have any extra wisdom, maybe something you've learned along the way that you wish you had learned sooner. I know you can't just say to gain confidence eventually. You can't do that one.
No.
Or maybe things get easier. Anything come to mind you want to offer?
Well, sure. I mean, I think, the advice that was always given when I was, younger was, oh, when you move to New York City, you better go to all the art openings. That's the only way you're going to meet people. And, I kind of think that's bullshit. It's the only way you're going to meet people and get a show or something. And I've really never met anybody where that's happened. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but I mean, the first time I moved to New York and I was like, oh, okay, I have to go to this opening. And I remember going to the opening and it was this big room and there was tons of people and I knew nobody. And I walked around twice to in the gallery looking at the work. I was so uncomfortable and I left thinking, I will never go to an opening unless I know somebody there.
Okay.
But my advice would be to try to, have friends and build up a community.
Okay.
And
not just the social circle of
right.
openings and this and that.
But try to have join an art community, which there is, a number of them in New York, and also try to be as generous as you can with your art friends. It's a very competitive, obviously, very envious making discipline like other disciplines, but I think that generosity can really get you far, and I think it's it's tough for everybody and in different ways and different levels, and I just think appreciating people's work even though you might not like it, and appreciating the effort. I just think it's better to have a generous attitude than not. So.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that also comes with time and age.
Absolutely.
Even since I've been back, I notice a softening, and less even than softening, a real sort of excitement when I see new paintings around. Paintings that maybe earlier in my life I would have said, oh, I don't really like this very much, and what's this about? And it's fine to have your opinions of what a great work is, but now I just find myself genuinely pretty interested in work that's on the wall. And you can go the other way and say, this work's on the wall and mine's not. You can, but that rarely gets you anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I can listen. We all have that, and I had that a lot more, and now it's more just right. Being critical is fine, but not at the expense of somebody. And listen. I mean, we all want more than we have, and this endless wanting is always there. But I think it's partly an age thing. You get to a point where it's just like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, maybe a final question too is, you're showing at this beautiful gallery in Chelsea, and you, as you pronounced, you're not a big fan of hobnobbing gallery openings. So when you moved back here, I know you're from here, but when you moved back here and getting serious about painting and all of this, were you doing group shows? Were you were meeting people and building community and being generous, but was there anything else that kind of led you to have, I think, a longer term relationship with this gallery that we're in now? Any
I don't know. I started, I was part of, when I first moved back to New York, part of 55 Mercer Street, which was a very old artist-run gallery.
Cool.
And then I became part of the Painting Center, which was part with also another artist-run gallery. And then I was in some group shows, and I got a couple of residencies, and it's the usual progression.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate when Kathryn liked my work and offered me a show. So it's you know, I forgot what the question was.
You kind of just was sort of asking for a little bit of maybe a linear narrative, and that's what you gave. Is it sort of?
I mean, I showed with the gallery in Hudson for a number of years, John Davis Gallery, before Hudson became a big thing. So yeah, it's been here and there, and of course, you know, always happy to be in a group show.
For sure. Yeah.
Fran,
this has legit been so much fun. Thank you for telling me all about your paintings and just all of this.
Thank you, Isaac. I really, really appreciate talking with you. And you had great questions.
Yes.
And I love your podcast. Seriously, I've listened to many people interviewed, so everybody should listen to it.
Hey, thank you.
Shout out.
Started off the press.